I don't think mixing and the art of being good at mixing is tied up in any sort of logic. I don't think so. I mean, there's certain concepts you're going to learn, but so will everybody else. And I venture to say they already have. In other words, anybody who's devoted enough of their time to this can find out the concepts and just pick it all up over not that much time. What separates one great mixer from another after they've both had access to all the same information? Because I venture to say that there's enough people out there who've been doing this for enough years that they may have most of the information that's necessary to make a mix sound good already. Why isn't everyone making mixes that sound good? Why not? Because this is the difference. In here is the separation between knowing what to change and making a bunch of changes that don't mean anything to the song. In here. When to be creative, when to go outside of their own idea of what is right, what makes no sense. The open-mindedness within the mixing engineer is the difference. That's why I think it makes no sense to show examples to people of what things sound like. Sure, I do it sometimes, because why not? But it makes no sense to do that when the big picture is all about how to get your mind into a position where you can do mental gymnastics at the drop of a hat. You need to be able to freaking, uneven bars up here. You need to do some horse up here, whatever they call that thing. You need to be able to jump on the rings and do your flipping around and not break your shoulders while you're doing it. That's what you got to do up here in order to be good at mixing. And in my mind, I'll just translate everything I just said to being able to be open-minded beyond the shadow of a doubt, way beyond what you think open-minded is. My definition of open-minded is literally trying every single thing, even the things you know from your own experience, to not make any sense or not work for you. That could have been that day. That could have been that song. That could have been at that moment. If you just discount every possibility that could be an extension of some idea that you don't think makes sense, that's like shading out half the circle of what's possible. You've closed the door to some idea that may be right next to, directly contiguous, right there, just touching some other idea that made no sense. So I'm not saying every idea makes sense. What I'm saying is just the act of having an open mind to try things consistently, continuously, even when they might not make sense. I think that that's actually the answer to being the best mix engineer that there is. That's what I think. I personally believe that, I work at this all the time, and I work at this also because of my history. My personal story is not really that relevant, but there was someone in my life who believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were always right. And I watched this person, no matter what, at all costs, discount everything that they didn't believe is right. Okay? And what that means when you're mixing, if you think one thing is right and you just discount all this other stuff, that's what I'm telling you is you're missing out on the door right next door. And then through that door, there's another door. And then through that door, there's 7 other doors. And through that, there could be 100 other doors. You just discounted all of that because you are fixed on something that may actually be true. In other words, you may actually be correct that something makes no sense, but just in trying that, you may get hit with another idea, all right? And you know where I come up with this from? None of us actually get our own ideas. We can't control where we get these ideas from. That's what I mean, okay? Obviously, they're our ideas in our heads, but my point is, how do they get there? How do they get there? One way they get there is through input. In other words, we're picking up information all the time, and that's why each of us, our life experience, actually contributes to how well we can mix. Because the more inputs we've had, not just about mixing, but about life, the more open-minded we can be, and then the more we're willing to try things that may make no sense. And in trying it, we may come up with another idea. Because that's what I actually mean is like, because you can't control when you get a great idea, and if you could, wouldn't you be the richest person in the world if you could just implant great ideas into your head at, just at your beck and call, whenever you want one, give me an idea. Boom, I got one. It's not that way. And because it's not that way, what makes you think by going down some path, you're driving down a path, you're actually creating the impetus and the catalyst for your brain to come up with another idea by driving down in a direction, even if it makes no sense? What makes you think in doing that you're in a worse position than if you didn't have the idea and you weren't driving down some path? No. In doing that, you don't know what's happening in here. What's happening is everything in here is firing in all directions to try to come up with a way to make what you're doing useful. And it's doing it at the sake, or not, it's doing it in rebellion of your brain thinking this won't work. In other words, you could think it won't work and this makes no sense, but just drive down the path and see where you wind up. Because what I'm telling you is, even if you attempt to do something that makes no sense, watch what happens when you're doing that. Watch what happens in here. Just take note of what happens. It may not be something that leads you to a great path, but it could. It's certainly going to take you way farther than thinking you know everything. Certainly going to take you way farther than never having experimented in the first place. And every day that you live, you have a different perspective. You have a slightly different perspective based on all your experiences, if you let yourself. Do you realize how much is caught up in here? If you live with one doctrine of this is what this means, you can't ever truly expand your brain enough to allow it to take in the most amount of information. All right? A great comment from a dude on a previous video, Audio Glengineer, said something I thought was magical, so eloquently. And I'm going to paraphrase it and probably mess it up a little bit, but the idea of it was simple. You must allow yourself to react to the chemistry of the sound as you're hearing it. You must allow yourself to entertain any and all possibilities. And that, that's basically allowing you to go into every situation with an open mind and not have any preconceived notions, and allow magic to happen. Allow that creative spark to flourish. Allow the flash to actually take you somewhere, rather than come to the table thinking that doesn't make any sense and then just go about your mix the way you've always done it. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Okay? That's what you're doing by doing that. Whereas the other way, you're actually coming to the table thinking, well, I don't know, I don't think this will work, but let me try it. And in trying it, see what happens. Because even if you don't believe it's good and you think it's still bad, you may actually get somewhere by doing that. Because you're forcing your brain to try to see all the angles, to try to get behind this blockage that may exist in your head. Because that's the reason I think young people are actually so far ahead of the game when it comes to songwriting, when it comes to mixing, when it comes to anything. Because for whatever reason, and it's not always the case, but for whatever reason, sometimes life experience is nothing but something that will create a roadblock. And it doesn't always have to be this way. A lot of people who are older, their life experience has actually taught them that they don't know anything. The older you get, the more you realize what you don't know. I mean, that's how it's been for me. And I've met a lot of people, especially older people, who feel this way exactly. That the older they get, the more they realize what they don't know, and the more willing they are to be open-minded, okay? And what this really means to me is that the less blocks that you have in your head about anything being one way, the more chances you will have at this, because this is mental gymnastics. Just like I said, it's mental gymnastics every step of the way. So you think being less flexible in here is actually going to help you? No shot. No shot. All right. Another thing I want you to know is throughout this journey that we're on, it's not a young man's game. It's just like any journey where a creative you know, where your life experiences come into play to create something that's different than every single other person who's ever done this. The more people who become successful at mixing, the better it is for you, because you should not think of yourself as, oh man, I'm here and they're there and I'll never get there. You should only think of yourself as, wow, all these people that I know are now, you know, becoming famous mix engineers, or now there's all these mix engineers out there when there used to be just a handful of people doing it. That's amazing. You could be one of them, and that's how you should think about it. The more people that get successful at this, you could be one of those people, all right? Samuel L. Jackson, one of the greatest actors there's ever been, 40 years old when he got discovered. Joe Pesci did enough work as an actor from the time he was a kid. I think he started when he was like 10, and then he stopped at some point. He got tired of it because he wasn't landing any film roles, and he had done one film, I believe. Then he had after being a child actor for so long and doing all these Broadway shows, I think TV series, things like that. Then he's running a restaurant. He gave up acting, and Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese see something he did and go, this guy would be perfect for this movie. They go meet with him, and then he's in Raging Bull and all the amazing movies thereafter, and Joe Pesci is undeniably a film legend. So the way I look at this is, you know, and he was 37, I believe, at the time where he was cast in Raging Bull. So all I'm saying is, you could be old, you could be young. It doesn't mean anything what age you are. This is anybody's game. It's fair play for everyone if you can take everything that makes you special, that's up here, and the mental gymnastics and flexibility it takes to do this correctly, and you bring that to the table, then you are just as capable as everyone else. And the quicker you unlock this from being locked into one mindset, the quicker you will be able to get to a point where you're creating products that people think are amazing. That's what I want you to know. Okay? I think this is something that's inside every one of us once we unlock this. That's why you'll hear me talk way more about this than about twisting the knobs, because I think twisting the knobs is something you can learn over a couple years. No big deal. This could take a lifetime to unlock, so you better start working on it now. The more closed-minded you are, the less of a chance you're giving yourself. And that's the way I look at it. All right? Tell me how you look at it in the comments. I'd appreciate it. All right? It helps the channel out a lot. It means a lot to me. Subscribe if you haven't already. My name's Evan Jaffe. This is Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this. Seriously, you got this. Take it easy.